Hello and welcome to this YouTube episode today where I'm going to be talking about alcohol post weight loss surgery, what it looks like, why it's probably not a good idea, why it's definitely not a good idea in the early stages, and long term what we need to be considering, certainly with weight loss being the goal and other aspects of the journey. I'm going to be recording this as a podcast today at the same time, which is extremely ambitious. But then again, I see all the big boys and all the big girls in podcast world really utilising it to their advantage. So we'll see how we go. I'll play around with the background, but I'm just keen to get this out there. Hopefully it's the information rather than the visual, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this in the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe. It's something that I'm going to be very consistent with going forwards and getting information across, and yeah, it's highly appreciated, and we'll see where we go, right? But let's get this community together, this wonderful weight loss surgery community, and just make it the journey as smooth as possible for people. It's always going to be ups and downs, but if we're barking up the right tree, we've got the right information, it doesn't half help. Okay, so I'm going to start the podcast now, so it might seem a bit weird because I'm going to introduce the podcast and we'll interact, and I've never done this before, right? So we'll just kind of see how it goes, okay? But alcohol and why it's important to be aware of it post-op. It's weird when I start a podcast. I have to kind of like give myself a bit of a, because you can't really make too many mistakes. I'm not really keen on editing. So same with you actually on YouTube. Anyway, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Tonic Weight Loss Podcast. My name is Harry Hedges. I am the Lone Ranger today, and I am going to be talking about alcohol post-op. What to do with it, why it's definitely not a good idea in those early stages, time frames, type of alcohol, and also towards weight loss and why it can be quite bumpy when it comes to our weight loss, with what it does to our body and kind of what it does to certainly our inhibitions, which is something that I think we can all agree that alcohol tends to lower over time. And look, there's a saying I quite like when it comes to alcohol: no good story started with a salad. So look, I think in moderation there is a time and a place, but we need to navigate it accordingly, very, very efficiently post-op. I'm actually recording this on YouTube at the same time for those of you who want to watch it more visually. I mean, as visual as I am, looking at a camera talking. But something I'm very keen to do is get more information out there in different realms. And while the podcast has been a great success, and I'm so pleased with it, and I'm so pleased with the feedback that I get from patients with regards to helping their journey on their dog walks, and you know, people talk to me, I'm good to listen to while sitting on the toilet, you know, all these kind of strange places. Whatever floats your boat when it comes to this stuff. I'm just glad that hopefully this information will be effective to your journey. And empowered is a word I use quite a lot as part of weight loss surgery, because I think a lot of people going into it feel like it's a last resort because they are potentially quite confused by the industry, and certainly weight loss can be a very confusing industry, particularly in the world of social media, where people are always either saying how they got results, and as we know about nutrition, it's multi-layered. It's not going to be the same for everybody. Keto can work for some people, intermittent fasting can work for some people, tracking calories can work for some people. But if we're empowered with the science, if we're empowered by the numbers, we've got a good chance, you know, and there's not enough of that in the industry. Unfortunately, evidence-based practice isn't very cool. But you know what? I'm not cool either. So we'll just keep getting information out there, and hopefully certain nuggets will go quite a long way for you. So anyway, without further ado, I've said I'm going to talk about alcohol. I'm going to list it there's going to be a list of 5, okay? The first couple are going to be more weight loss surgery led. And then the other 3 are going to be more just maybe what we should be aware of alcohol anyway, and going into the long-term weight loss surgery, why these things could be beneficial. So I hope that makes sense, okay? So alcohol in the post-op, look, we really need to be considering a 3 to 6 month break. It's that whole one won't hurt you, but how many people does one turn into more than one? As I said, it lowers our inhibitions, and that's just not something we really want to be getting involved with while we're recovering from an operation like this. So to really go on the safe side, we tend to say 3 to 6 months. Certainly, certain alcohol can be quite bloating. So in the real early stages on those incisions, we've got to be extremely careful because they are delicate for the sleeves and bypasses out there. But the number one reason, and the one that's going to start this reason off as to why it's not a good idea post-op for me, is the hydration aspect of it, okay? We know that alcohol is exceptionally dehydrating. Our body is about 60 to 70% water. So with that in mind, our blood, when it is thicker, it's not going to operate around our body when it comes to getting blood and oxygen to the muscle groups that we require. Lots of patients report that if they sit up quite suddenly, they can get quite dizzy, and that's because very likely they're dehydrated and we can't get blood and oxygen to the brain quick enough. And yeah, an alcohol is just going to disturb that quite badly, okay? It's very dehydrated, takes a good couple of days to get it back to normal hydration levels, but also it plays havoc with weight loss, okay? So it's an interesting one for the human body. It's so blooming clever, but when we are dehydrated, naturally we weigh less. So people who have a drink will find that maybe if they weigh themselves at the end of the evening, don't get involved in all this, but if you did, you'd probably find that you're a bit lighter. But the next day we have to eat, we have to drink, and the body tends to cling on to water. So you can find that you maybe drop 2 pounds, but then put on like 5 pounds. And look, again, people shouldn't be weighing themselves daily anyway, but if they were to notice that or stumble across it, it could be mighty, mighty disheartening to see your weight fluctuating around on that sort of level. Water is very volatile. Alcohol makes water even more volatile. And with weight loss, I feel like it's something not to get involved with. But beyond weight loss, we need to be hydrated individuals. Our bodies does not get on very well without water. And there's so many studies suggest that even a 5 to 10% dehydration rate, which, bear in mind, the tool itself is filling. We ask you to eat protein, a certain amount, sort of 60, 80, 100 grams of protein, which is very filling. And water is very voluminous, and that's why you've got to follow that 20-minute sort of rule around meals, because we need to get the nutrients from the meals. But if you're getting water with the meal, you're going to get full very, very quickly. So water is super important, ideally sort of 1.5 litres plus per day. And alcohol dehydrates you massively, so performance is going to go down, weight is going to fluctuate, so it's just a bad idea for 3 to 6 months. Okay, I know that might sound like quite a big time frame, but I guess it does vary a little bit based on recovery and what happens. And also the relationship with alcohol going into the operation is quite a big one as well. Okay, so hydration, super important. Please, please, please avoid alcohol for a period of time, because I can't get across to you how important that hydration level is. Number 2. Calorie consumption and dumping, okay? So I suppose that's kind of split into two a little bit. Alcohol is extremely calorie dense. It is the one macronutrient. It is actually sort of like the naughty fourth macronutrient that nobody talks about. What is a macronutrient? It is something that gives you calories. Protein, every gram of protein, 4 calories. Carbs, every gram of carb, 4 calories, same as protein. Fat, every gram of calorie, 9 calories. Every gram of fat, 9 calories, I should say. And alcohol, every gram, 7 calories, okay? Now, alcohol tends to come with other macros, usually carbs, beers and wines and things like that. But it's got no nutritional value to us. I'm sorry, I wish, without the fun police too much, I wish I could report differently, but alcohol has absolutely no nutritional value for us. I mentioned earlier on, no good story starts without a salad, but no good story starts with a salad. But alcohol is something that we need to be aware of, because it will add calories to our food, calories to our nutrition, but it offers no value. It also, as I said a minute ago, it comes with carbs usually in drinks and things like that. Or the other thing that alcohol does is, like I said, I mentioned earlier on, it lowers your inhibitions. It can make people not care about their diet goals anymore. So they could overconsume on food, and obviously the body, whether it be a sleeve or a bypass, whatever, dumping syndrome can occur. And that usually occurs in 2 ways, usually from eating or drinking too much too quickly, or indeed it can be from having a combined load of macronutrients together at once. So remember I said carbs and carbs, fats, protein, they all have calories. If we're having too much in one go because we're having a couple of macros mixed together, it can occur from that as well. Okay, so, and lots of people have a relationship of drinking quite quickly, so you can see how dumping can occur. But I'm just going to go back to the calorie consumption side of things, because obviously I said a minute ago about how hydration will make weight very volatile. On a calorie basis, it's not just the drinking day, is it? Let's face it. It's usually the day of the drinking, the calories will be a lot higher. The hangover day, the calories will be a lot higher. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I have 2-3 days worth of hangover and I'm just not firing, okay? And there's another thing I'm going to talk about at number 4 as to why it can be even worse than that. But that combined, all put together, not great for weight loss, all right? So again, when we get to the right point, sort of 3 to 6 months post-op, there is an element of moderation to this stuff. I don't want to be that guy who say you can never drink again, but we need to consider a going into number 3, what is a break from alcohol, okay? There is tremendous benefits from having a break from alcohol. You're not saying you have to quit for the rest of your life, but it is something that I think will offer lots and lots of value. Why is that? Well, a bad habit, I'm doing a little, the Joey from Friends with the fingers, so YouTube can see that. But a bad habit could kind of be defined as something that gives us a reward in the short term. It makes us feel good straight away. And you could argue an alcoholic drink would fall into that category. Calorie-dense food can fall into that category. And high availability to it can be very easy to overconsume it. Whereas a good habit, you could argue, is something that takes a bit of time to get the reward in doing it. So exercise is an example of that. You tend to get DOMS with exercise, delayed onset muscle soreness. You tend to, if you haven't done exercise for a little while, it's not a very fulfilling social time. It could feel quite awkward, but over time you get better at it. But over the course of time, you will notice a lot of benefits from doing it. And an alcohol break will certainly do that. Your sleep quality, that will clue what's coming into number 4. Your even just things like your brain just works differently. People who report having been off alcohol for 2 weeks, their creativity goes up, their productivity goes up, their focus goes up. These are all good words towards weight loss surgery, okay? Because we are changing our life, we are taking our life back. And words like focus, creativity, productivity, efficiency, all goes very well. So a break from alcohol is highly beneficial, and it can also change the relationship with alcohol long term, because you go, actually, this is actually pretty good, okay? And lots of people who are, whether they're a little and oftener, sort of a couple of glasses of wine at the end of the day after work, you will notice benefits, but it's quite hard in the early stages, but over the course of time, you will notice a lot of benefits. Those binge drinkers, who finish work on a Friday and have to go and get plastered straight away, you will notice a lot of benefits from not doing that the weekend. So that Monday morning, people report the fear, things like anxiety comes into play if we overconsume alcohol. So it's just something to go like, Joe, if you take a break, reap the benefits, and long term, you can play that package every now and again. Package wasn't the right word there, but I just sort of said package. I 3 years ago did my first alcohol break of 4 months. I loved it, and every year I implement a 3 to 4 month break from it, depending on my social situations and things like that. So again, I'm not saying you can't do it forever, but I'm saying there can be benefits to a break and seeing those benefits, because if you are somebody who has to do it daily or weekly, I think you have to ask the question why. There can be sort of certainly habits and environment and certainly stress that we need to conquer, and alcohol tends to compound it, okay? It always fascinates with alcohol. It's the only drug where people put pressure on you to take, isn't they? Which is a very interesting sort of side of things on a social basis. And a lot of it, I think, is that social side of it, that art of saying no. It's not boring to give up alcohol for a period of time. It's extremely beneficial to your life, okay? And certainly when it comes to weight loss and weight loss surgery, there is a ton of benefits. Sleep. Our sleep quality dramatically goes down when we have a drink. I'm one of these people who wears a Whoop, and it is crazy. I tend to spend most of my time in the sort of 75-80% green range. And if I have an alcoholic drink, it just plummets. I'm talking like maybe 2. You can get like 8%, 10% in the sense that your sleep quality, your HRV goes down, which is like the space in between your heartbeats, which sounds quite technical, but basically just means that your recovery is so much less efficient. You don't fall into a deep layer of sleep, your REM is compromised, and because of that, you're more tired the next day, you're slightly more rash the next day, you're slightly more stressed the next day. And what can that lead to? It can lead to us wanting to find things that are going to make ourselves feel better, slider foods, calorie-dense foods, etc. It's worth just bearing this in mind around alcohol, because week to week, there's a knock-on effect there, and it can slow down weight loss, because again, words like erratic, rash, stress, these are not words that we want to be associated with. Now, of course, stress comes in different shapes and sizes, but there are certain things that we have control over to allow ourselves to thrive. And again, alcohol is that guy. So I really want to get a sense, I know I sound like a broken record, but I want to keep sort of saying it's moderation is king. I'm not saying you can never do it. I think 3 to 6 months, don't do it, okay? But I think on after that, moderation is king. If there's a wedding, if there's a stag or a hen do, I get it, we're British, I get it, but do so knowing the numbers around it to which you can be empowered to have an approach, because it can be mighty frustrating if you're feeling tired, stressed and erratic because your sleep is compromised from alcohol, and then weight is staying the same, okay? And the last thing which I think I just want to kind of talk about is everything I'm talking about here is not for the rest of your life, okay? That's super, super important to bear in mind. Sometimes I think when people go down a journey like this, there is this idea of, I can never do this again. It's like, no, but when people get to this point where they want to take this journey, they want to change their life, and that means you've got to bring things with you a little bit, okay? So what I mean by that is, if there is a relationship with alcohol going into the operation, we want to be able to change that. We want to kind of look at different options that are out there to us, and sometimes we're so blurred. There's a line I quite like. Many of us, including me, have addictive traits towards certain things, and alcohol could fall into that for me. I mean, before I was a personal trainer, when I worked in retail and I hated my job, alcohol, I'll go as borderline to say that I was close to addicted. No, I never drink daily or anything like that, but weekends I was like, I need to have this to get, because I can't barely thought of going back to work, So whether that's addiction or not, I don't know, but what I'm saying is that there was a dependency there, which is not good. And it wasn't until that I found other aspects of my life through happiness, through exercise and through nutrition, that I decided that I would be a little bit more sporadic with my alcohol. So the point being is that if you could argue an addiction or a dependency is a narrowing of things that give you happiness, okay? And if that's the case and you keep turning to it, that can be problematic, whether it's alcohol or something else. What we want to do is broaden what gives us happiness, and sometimes you've got to put that thing that narrows it to the side for a bit to go and explore exercise. Let's face it, guys, if you're drinking, it's very likely that exercise is going to be compromised. We're going to feel more de-energized. We're not going to be as active. So we need to just be aware of this, and it's not for the rest of your life. There will be social situations where it will be dictated that maybe you do, if that is your social circle, and that's what you want to do. And this is what this podcast is about. It's what this YouTube video is about. It's around being empowered, around making decisions based on fact, on science, not on emotion, not on because someone told me to, not on fad, not because, on the fact that you've got this, you've always had this, but maybe sometimes there's been a bit of confusion around it all, okay? So for me, as part of this podcast, what I want to say is in the early stages post-op, it is a bad idea, okay? For your safety, dehydration, dumping, the incisions, lowering of inhibitions, so doing things that we don't mean. Look, guys, when I talk about lowering of inhibitions, when people drink alcohol, they can dance like a complete fool that they wouldn't normally do. I'm not saying that's that can be part of the fun part of it, but I'm sure you can think of many things that you've done when inhibitions have been lowered, arguing about things that you don't want to argue about that you wouldn't do normally, saying things that you don't mean, and you can go as deep as well, you know what I mean. There's lots of things that happen when alcohol is present, right? And look, again, it can be fun sometimes. I think sometimes I've got a saying that nothing good happens after midnight. So don't get involved in all that. But look, it's your life. You can do what you want to do with this sort of stuff. But in the first few months post-op, it's a terrible idea based on hydration, based on calories consumed, based on the compromisation of your weight loss, based on energy levels. Don't do it, okay? But after a little while, when it's time to moderate, and if you've seen the benefits from the break, I'm sure that will help. As I said earlier on, you'll have decisions to make going forwards from that. And if you decide to bring it back in again, that's fine. But just be aware that if weight loss is still the goal, it doesn't stop weight loss. I can't come on here and say that'd be wrong, but it does slow down weight loss. And I think when people have an emotional connection to this stuff, and lots of people do, that slowing down can feel quite hard. It can feel quite disheartening, and you can sometimes have that sort of what can be a very virtuous cycle when we're off alcohol for a period of time post-op. It can become what could be a very vicious circle, I should say. I went the wrong way around. What could be a very virtuous circle to start with can become quite a vicious circle quite quickly. And it's important to look at ourselves and see what is doing it. And if alcohol's part of it, we need to have that control factor to make a decision based on whatever your goals are. Again, this is not me telling you what to do. This is an empowerment piece. And hopefully there's been some nuggets there, whether it's be around not knowing that alcohol has 7 calories in it, not knowing that it, the real danger to the hydration levels, etc., etc. The sleep quality, super important. I really hope there were some benefits in this podcast that you can take away and put it into your everyday life. And if there wasn't, well, hopefully the next podcast I will get that a bit better. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please, if you have any questions around any of this, you can email me, harry@tonicsurgery.co.uk. Please check me out on, I've created a new page now, patients, for Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. It's called the Bariatric PT. That's my name. I want to continue to help people with this journey. It's the most fulfilling job in the world. I just want to get it out there a bit more. The podcast will remain. I'm going to be coming at you every single week going forwards, and YouTube. Well, pretty much day to day at the moment, but probably going into sort of 3 times a week going forwards as well. And what would be really helpful is if we have some topics that you would like me to talk about. All the best from me. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. It looks like the sun's starting to pop out in where I am in Ashby today. So hopefully we're on to a bit of a winner there. Beer Garden's come back. But have a great weekend and I'll speak to you soon, guys. Bye-bye.